Tom Bower has now claimed to reveal the real reason, in his view, behind Meghan Markle's unexpected 47-minute visit to Highgrove, and the version he is putting forward paints a very different picture. What was expected to be a warm family moment reportedly ended up looking like a brief, carefully managed meeting, which has left plenty of people asking what really happened behind the scenes. Bower has also issued what he describes as a serious warning for King Charles, and in this video, I'll go through exactly what he said and why it has sparked fresh debate online.
Meghan Markle felt humiliated on Prince Harry's most recent UK trip, and that the trip turned into a nightmare, forcing Markle and her children to return home to California earlier than they had hoped.
Tom Bower is known as more than just a royal biographer. Over time, he has also become one of the most recognizable commentators on Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and their ongoing ties to the royal family. According to Bower, Harry and Meghan traveled to the United Kingdom with one main goal in mind. He suggested they were hoping to ease the fallout from Megxit and find a way to rebuild their connection with the royal family, even with all the tension and long-running complications surrounding those relationships. That interpretation has naturally sparked fresh discussion, especially among viewers who have been following every new development closely.
But I do think that when you're mocked so publicly as they've been, their value begins to nosedive pretty quickly. And I don't think they're finding any more sources of income. And with the stream of money they're spending on security, on mortgages, on just plain living, I think they can see the end of the road within 5 years at best. And they've got a real financial problem now.
After being away from royal duties for years, their position was said to have shifted in a significant way. From this point of view, several of their public ventures were reportedly running into setbacks. Meghan's lifestyle brand was said to be facing difficulties, while Harry's charitable ties were also described as coming under pressure. Because of that, Bower argues they may have needed a path to rebuild relevance, strengthen credibility, and pull public attention back their way. In his view, the royal family remained the one institution that could help restore some of the status they once had. That is why this latest claim has drawn so much attention online, because it is not just about one private visit, it is about what people think it suggests about the bigger picture. Some commentators believe the whole situation reflects a wider effort to manage appearances, while others say that reading too much into a short meeting can easily lead to unfair assumptions. Still, the fact that Bower framed it this way has clearly kept the conversation moving. What makes the reaction even more intense is that every small detail gets picked apart when it comes to Harry and Meghan. Supporters push back hard, critics jump on any sign of tension, and neutral viewers are left trying to separate speculation from what can actually be verified. So when a visit like this is described as unusual or carefully handled, it naturally becomes a talking point, especially among people already watching the royal divide closely.
Meghan and Harry's crisis, completely of their own making, is they have no major projects, no major money earners. And so they're more desperate than ever. And I think that they don't know what to do other than to try and come back to Britain and rebuild themselves as some sort of members of the royal family.
After years away from royal duties, their position had reportedly shifted in a major way. From this angle, several of their public projects were said to be running into trouble. Because of that, Bower argues they were looking for a way to rebuild relevance, regain credibility, and pull public attention back in their direction. Bower said, Meghan and Harry's crisis, according to his view, is that they have no major projects, no major money earners, and so they're more desperate than ever. And I think that they don't know what to do other than to try and come back to Britain and rebuild themselves as some sort of members of the royal family. That is Bower's own claim, and it has already sparked a lot of debate online. According to his version, they still needed a convincing reason to reconnect with the royal family, and that opening came through the Invictus Games. Since Harry has long been closely associated with the event, it gave him a natural reason to travel back to the United Kingdom without it looking like a direct attempt to return to royal life.
I think that's what the Invictus Games, which is this very splendid competition for wounded servicemen, is going to start in Birmingham next year, but there's a rehearsal later in the summer. And Harry is determined to come, and if he could, he'd bring Meghan and somehow work his way back in so that they have status. My feeling is that the king might be slightly sympathetic.
According to reports, King Charles, still said to be acting from a place of parental concern, agreed to the meeting and even offered Harry a place to stay at Buckingham Palace. But Harry reportedly did not take up the offer right away, and later accounts suggest that invitation may have been withdrawn. That surprising turn only deepened the speculation about what may have been happening behind the scenes.
The invitation for Prince Harry to stay at Buckingham Palace has been withdrawn. He's coming to Britain today.
After much speculation, a Duke of Sussex spokesperson confirmed the offer, as Andrew says, has been withdrawn at the last moment.
As all of this was playing out, Tom Bower says King Charles began to notice what he viewed as a pretty clear pattern. In Bower's telling, the king reportedly started to believe Harry and Meghan were trying to undo the fallout from Megxit and edge back toward the royal family, mainly because of the credibility, status, and commercial appeal that still come with that connection. That is also why Tom Bower's advice to the king stands out so much in this discussion, because it adds another layer to the bigger debate, and I'll get into why it matters. And that is where the conversation really starts to shift, because once a claim like this is out there, people do not just focus on the visit itself, they start reading into every possible motive behind it. Some online commentators see the entire situation as a sign that old tensions are still very much unresolved, while others argue that short royal meetings can be blown out of proportion when people are already expecting drama. What makes this so sticky is that it sits right at the center of a much bigger public story, one about reputation, family ties, and the constant push and pull between privacy and public image. So even without any official confirmation of the more speculative parts, the discussion keeps growing, since viewers are trying to decide whether this was simply a brief family moment or something with a far more calculated meaning. That is exactly why Bower's warning has landed so heavily in the broader debate, because it is not just about one visit, it is about what some people think it could signal next.
I think the king right now, his best bet would be to distance himself completely, make it clear to Harry that the Sussexes are not welcome at all in Britain.
According to Tom Bower, Harry may have underestimated just how much his father notices, or at least keeps track of, behind the scenes. After all, King Charles is the monarch, and Bower suggests that very little gets past him. In Bower's view, the king was well aware that many of Harry and Meghan's public ventures had not unfolded the way they may have hoped. Their Hollywood partnerships were reportedly facing hurdles. Meghan's lifestyle brand was said to be encountering difficulties, and Harry's ties with certain charitable organizations had also become more complicated, at least according to the discussion surrounding all of this.
When Chandauka denounces Harry as a racist and a bully, and that was, obviously for Harry, absolute disaster. He left the charity soon after, and the charity still survives, but obviously his reputation was severely dented.
However, since the Highgrove meeting had already been arranged, there reportedly was no easy way for King Charles to pull out without drawing even more public attention. So, according to Tom Bower, the king took a different route. He would still let the meeting go ahead, but only on very specific terms. Bower claims King Charles was determined not to repeat what he saw as the mistake of being too open without drawing firm boundaries. He suggests that the warmer, more welcoming tone that had reportedly been shown during Harry's earlier visit to the United Kingdom was no longer in place. Instead, the Highgrove meeting was said to have been handled in a much tighter way. According to Bower, it was private, unusually short, and carefully managed from start to finish, with every detail kept under close control.
So I think gradually the king has become much, more respected than he might have been. And he is in fact highly respected now, as is the Queen. And they had to fight hard to get to that. So I think the sympathy at the moment is all in their favor. And they're not going to let all their hard work. And you've got to remember, and they're not going to cause an argument with William and Kate, who have absolutely no intention of in any way allowing the rehabilitation of the Sussexes here. So I think it's the royal family versus the Sussexes. And today, the royal family won.
According to reports circulating online, Meghan may have been expecting a noticeably warmer reception after spending several years away from the United Kingdom. Instead, the reaction was said to be much cooler than she had anticipated. People familiar with the discussion described the meeting less as a heartfelt family reunion and more as a formal, tightly managed conversation between relatives whose relationship had clearly grown more distant over time. That shift in tone is exactly what has people talking, because once a meeting is described as being that controlled, every small detail starts to matter. Online, some viewers read it as a sign that the royal family was keeping things strictly business, while others believe the whole story may have been stretched by outside commentary looking for hidden meaning. What keeps this discussion alive is the gap between what was officially visible and what people think might have been left unsaid. No one outside the room can truly know how the conversation went, but that has not stopped the speculation from spreading. Instead, it has turned the Highgrove visit into a larger symbol for the ongoing tension around boundaries, trust, and image. And that is why Bauer's comments are getting so much attention, because they are being seen by some as less about one brief meeting and more about the broader message they may have sent about how closely the king is said to manage these situations.
Of course, they went on this trip to the UK. There was a bit of will they, won't they? Harry goes by himself, and then suddenly Meghan Markle with the kids in they trot as well. But there have been some reports that the family reunion that they had with the King and the Queen may have not gone as planned for Meghan. There are some suggestions that it probably wasn't warm and fuzzy. I can't imagine why.
According to Tom Bauer, the meeting seemed to send a very clear message to Meghan and Harry. In his view, even if they had hoped to rebuild ties with the royal family, there was no automatic route back into working royal life. Bauer argues that the days when royal connections could easily boost their public image or quietly support business plans were over, and that reality made the situation far more complicated than it had been before. In other words, the door was not necessarily closed, but it also was not opening freely either.
Their problem is that they've got no future. I mean, as ever, all her products, of course, is a complete disaster. She's got no Netflix series. She hasn't got any project at all. And they are literally wallowing in a maze where to go. And so predictably. And so that is the problem. And for them to come back in the midst of the current royal crisis here.
According to Tom Bauer, the meeting appeared to serve two key purposes. First, he argues it was meant to send a clear message that Harry and Meghan were not being welcomed back as working members of the royal family. Second, Bauer says it may have helped protect King Charles' public image during a very sensitive stretch of the discussion. He suggests that after Harry's reported accommodation request was turned down, and with conversations around his security arrangements still ongoing, there was concern the situation could be framed publicly as evidence that his father did not want him or his children in the United Kingdom. Bauer says the meeting helped prevent that kind of impression while still keeping firm boundaries in place. According to Tom Bauer, King Charles seemed to understand that risk and appeared to want to stop that version of events from taking hold. By allowing Harry and Meghan to come to Highgrove for a private family meeting, Bauer argues the king was showing that he was not fully shutting the door on his son. At the same time, Bauer believes the visit made something else clear. The bigger barriers were still the strained trust, the impact of earlier public criticism, and the fallout from choices Harry and Meghan had made over the years. In his view, those issues, rather than a complete rejection, were the real heart of the matter. That is exactly why the reaction online keeps growing, because this was never just being discussed as one private visit. For a lot of viewers, it became another example of how every move around the Sussexes and the king gets read through a much bigger lens, with people trying to decide whether the message was reconciliation, caution, or something in between. And once that kind of debate starts, it tends to take on a life of its own. Some commenters focus on the family angle, while others look at the public strategy behind it, asking whether the timing, the tone, and the limited nature of the meeting were all meant to send a broader signal. No official explanation has settled that discussion, which is why the speculation keeps circling. So even without anyone outside the room knowing the full picture, the Highgrove visit has become one of those moments people keep returning to, not just for what was said, but for what different sides believe it revealed about the larger royal dynamic.
That Harry would be able to say, my dad's left me out in the cold. here's my dad not protecting me with security again. I guess my dad doesn't want to see his grandchildren. Because that is what I was concerned about. And I think I even said to you, could this all be a scheme, a setup to blackmail the king into showing up at Birmingham next year, which you've said yourself was the ultimate goal for Prince Harry, to have that royal presence.
According to Tom Bower, another reason the Highgrove meeting may have felt uneasy was Queen Camilla's presence. He argues that her attendance was not random and says she was there because she had seen many of the moments that, in his view, may have helped strain the relationship between Harry and the royal family. Bower claims that having Queen Camilla in the room also meant there was another senior royal who could clearly remember what was discussed if questions came up later. In his view, that gave her the role of a witness of sorts. He suggests this was part of what he sees as King Charles's more guarded approach toward Harry after years of public tension, and he describes that as a cautious but understandable choice. According to Tom Bower, the way the Highgrove meeting played out showed just how much the relationship had changed over time. He argues that even if the door to private family communication was not fully shut, any trust would now need to be rebuilt slowly, rather than simply assumed. In Bower's view, the meeting was arranged to keep family contact alive while also making the boundaries unmistakably clear, leaving little room for anyone to misread where the royal family stood.
William and Kate and the King and Queen rebuild trust and respect. And the quicker the Sussexes leave Britain, the better. The question is only whether they go quietly and stay quiet, or whether they scream to earn a bit more money at the royal family's expense. That is the untold answer.
When the meeting wrapped up, Meghan Markle reportedly may have been looking for some clear signal that things had gone smoothly. But according to reports, the public reassurance she might have expected never materialized, and that left a lot of royal watchers focused on what was noticeably absent. There was no official photo released, no public show of reconciliation, and no widely shared moment that could be taken as proof of a renewed royal bond. Reports suggested the palace was careful to avoid any photo opportunities that could later be read as Harry and Meghan having regained their former standing within the family. That choice only added to the debate over the message behind the meeting. According to Tom Bower, the quiet that followed it mattered just as much as the meeting itself. He argues that the lack of official statements or upbeat updates pointed to a palace decision to keep the emphasis on privacy, not public presentation. Rather than setting off headlines about a major reunion, Bower believes the approach reflected a deliberate effort to manage expectations. In his view, the message was that private family talks could still happen, but they should not be treated as a sign of any big shift in Harry and Meghan's role inside the royal family.
According to one royal author, it wasn't simply because she happened to be there. Instead, he claims Camilla had a very specific role to protect the king and ensure the historic meeting unfolded with an independent witness present.
According to Tom Bower, the meeting also reportedly ended without any apology from Harry and Meghan, and there was no sign that their former royal standing would be restored. He argues that King Charles was not ready to respond to years of public criticism and ongoing disagreements by reopening the door to royal privileges. Bower also claims that once Harry and Meghan realized their reported efforts to rebuild closer royal ties were not getting the result they wanted, they turned more of their attention back toward family matters. Some critics of the couple have suggested that this may have included putting more public emphasis on their young family in an effort to encourage a warmer personal connection with the king. That reading comes from those critics, and it remains part of the wider online debate. Tom Bower says the events around the Highgrove meeting should be seen as one piece of a much larger story, not just as a simple family visit. In his view, every part of it, from how the meeting was arranged to how little was shared afterward, pointed to a carefully managed approach by the palace. Bower believes those choices were meant to strike a balance between keeping private family communication open and protecting the institution's long-term interests. Whether people agree with that interpretation or not, his claims have added yet another layer to the ongoing discussions surrounding the royal family. And that is why the conversation has not really tragic passing down, because people are not just reacting to one visit, they are reading it as part of a much bigger pattern. Online, some viewers see every detail as a clue, while others think too much is being made of a private family moment that no outsider can fully explain. What keeps the debate going is the gap between what was publicly seen and what was left unsaid. There was no clear public follow-up to settle the mood, so commentators filled in the blanks with their own interpretations, and that naturally led to more speculation about who was in control of the message and why it was handled so carefully. So even now, the Highgrove meeting is being discussed less as a simple stopover and more as a sign of how delicate the royal situation remains. For supporters, it can look like a cautious step forward. For critics, it looks like another example of boundaries being drawn very tightly. Either way, the reaction shows how much attention still follows every move tied to this family.
But of course, they're not apologizing. They have no contrition for the terrible things they've done over the last 5 years. So I never understood exactly how they thought it would play out, except that Harry was blackmailing his father.
Yes.
Do you want to see your grandchildren or not?
According to reports cited by Tom Bower, King Charles allowed the grandchildren to keep a family connection in place while still drawing very clear boundaries. Bower argues that the king was not prepared to let those family ties turn into a path back toward working royal life. In his view, protecting the future of the monarchy stayed the main priority, and he avoided any move that could be read as a big public relations win for Harry and Meghan. Bower also claims the king understood that an overly warm public welcome might send mixed signals and could even raise questions about Prince William's future role as monarch. Because of that, he says the Highgrove meeting stayed private, tightly managed, and limited in scope. According to Bower, Harry and Meghan left with only a private family meeting and nothing beyond that. He further argues that there was no new security arrangement, no stay at Buckingham Palace, no public appearance with the king, and no sign that their former royal status was being restored.
And the king, not being in his best of health and all the rest of that, and being a man who on the whole probably wants to see his grandchildren, wavered. I think that now, that ship has passed. I think that the Sussex's dream of somehow finding a role here, half in, half out, I think that has now passed.
He says the outcome was far different from what many people had expected. According to reports, once the meeting ended after just 47 minutes, no major agreement had been reached about Harry's future visits to the United Kingdom or the security concerns that continue to surround him. Reports also say Meghan later left Highgrove with the young children and headed back to Montecito, while Harry stayed behind to keep preparing for the Invictus Games. According to Tom Bower, that 47-minute Highgrove meeting has now become a symbol of how much the relationship between Harry, Meghan, and the royal family appears to have changed. He argues that the palace was prepared to allow private family contact, but still stayed firm about protecting the institution and keeping the boundaries very clear. In Bower's view, every part of the visit reflected that careful balancing act. His warning to King Charles is that any future conversations should be handled with the same level of caution, because, in his opinion, the stakes for the monarchy remain extremely high, and every move is likely to be watched closely.
Well, Meghan is furious because she hasn't done everything she wanted. When they knew they were going to come to the UK and London, she sent a list of what she wanted done for her at Buckingham Palace. Can you believe that? But they didn't go to a palace. They went to a home, and she didn't get what she wanted.
That is the picture Tom Bower has drawn around the 47-minute Highgrove meeting, along with the reports that followed it. Whether you agree with his reading of the situation or think it should be viewed another way, it is still the kind of royal story that keeps people talking. If this moment stood out to you, like this video, subscribe for more coverage, share it with anyone following the royal family, and comment with your view on what the meeting may have meant. See you on the next one.